Welcome, viewer, welcome, listener. If you only knew the heartache that I have endured over the last 4 hours. Pat McGart hasn't endured it, but he's been sympathetic from a distance. Would
Yeah,
that be a reasonable description of your views?
that's a reasonable assumption. Yes.
Now, what I've got
Put it
to
like
do is
this,
put the two
Jude.
of us. What I've got to do is put the two. uh, what I've got to do is put the two of us on gallery, Pat. Isn't that right?
Well, I haven't a clue what you're going to do,
Oh,
but
Jesus, I'm
uh,
lost
our,
completely.
our
We're not,
combined
we're
knowledge
not to
may
scrap that
take
one.
us back.
Sorry. Dear viewer, dear listener, you can't even begin to imagine the bad words that I have used. Pat McGart didn't even have to prompt me. I knew them all myself instinctively because I have been
Yeah.
struggling to get this damned Zoom to function the way it normally does, and it simply won't do it. I checked it out earlier on with my wife and it worked. But since Pat McGard has come back, it stopped working again. So that's why you're seeing both of us side by side. An unkind viewer said they preferred the big picture. They didn't like two postage stamps staring at them. What do you think of that, Pat? Is that nice talk?
Yeah, with our charms, good look, and personality, no Hollywood good looks, I can
Yeah,
see why they want the big picture.
aye, I can see that too. But at the same time, have you ever seen a more handsome pair of stamps than these?
Yeah.
Or a pair of
How people?
somethings? Pair of somethings.
Uh, yeah.
Okay.
Don't. That's a hostage to fortune you've just given a few people there.
Yeah. Okay, let's get down to business, Pat. There's only one topic that's been on everybody's lips, and on the TV and the radio. And I always watch that. I don't know if you watch it, Pat. I watch that the Weekend Politics on RTE on a
Yeah.
Sunday, and I quite
Yeah.
enjoy it. And I was looking forward to it this Sunday. And what have they done? They finished the whole series. So
Yeah.
I think so. I didn't get to see what they thought of Gerry A. Well,
Mm.
everybody knows the case about Gerry Adams. He took a case to court. He said that he had been libeled when people had the Spotlight program on BBC had declared that he was responsible or he signed off on the killing of Dennis Donaldson. And Gerry fought the law and Gerry won. He got a
Yeah.
hundred thousand euros, and he says he's going to give it to charity. And there's a lot of people are, I suppose, content with that, and there's an awful lot more people visible who seem rather uncontent with it. How would you feel about it, Pat?
Well, speaking as a journalist who's been involved in a not label action myself, it's not the most pleasant thing. But there's one thing that, Jude, in a way, I'm sort of happy with. I remember on occasion, and it was definitely true, Martin McGuinness, and I don't remember the exact details now, Jude, so there's no point in me bullshitting that I do. But someone appeared, as pretty certain it was a Sunday Independent, and there's an allegation about someone about Martin, which I knew to be factually, totally, completely inaccurate. And I remember very clearly Jude saying to Martin, Martin, you really should sue them for that there. It's disgraceful, it's that, and so on. He says, Pat, cop yourself on. He says, what chance would I have in a southern court? Southern courts even back then were worse nearly than the northern courts about winning a libel action against the Sunday Independent. He says, simply wouldn't happen. So I thought Gerry Adams was taking a massive risk going down south. But you know, there's one thing I think it's happened that the Michael McDowells, the Stephen Collinses, see the younger generation. They don't see through the same prism as the older generation. A lot of the young people have a very different view of what's going on or what has gone on, and they see Sinn Féin in a very different light from the old, what Cordite or whatever you like to call it. So I think maybe, well, I thought Gerry was taking a massive risk. Dude, he had a lost that. Where was he going to get 3 or 4 million to pay up? Because he's going to have to pay. Somebody's going to have to pay the cost of it. Now apparently, BBC are facing a bill of somewhere 4.2 million.
Hmm. Uh, well, there was quite a few points made in the media. I don't know if you were checking them, Pat, but one of the points was what you've just raised, this thing about young people, because the jury, I gather, was people in their 20s and their 30s. Uh, and that
Yeah.
some of the commentators were saying, well, they didn't remember the horrors that the IRA visited upon people in the north and the south, and they
Mm.
implied that that was why they gave the verdict to Gerry Adams. Would that seem to you to make sense, or was that what you were hinting at there?
Well, there could be an element of truth in that, but Jude, let's get this clear too. That for years, the media, North and South, I think they thought anybody from Sinn Féin was a open season. You could throw any muck at them and whatever. So, if you listen to some of the stuff of Michael McDowell in the witness box, Jude, he was there just to throw muck at or mud at Gerry Adams and the Republican movement. He has a long track record, and I think a lot of young people or a lot of people are just saying the a lot of stuff was brought up against Adam during his trial. It had nothing to do with the Spotlight program. The Spotlight program should have been the subject of one thing. Did Gerry Adams give the orders to shoot Dennis Donaldson? And where is the evidence that he gave the orders to? None. Absolutely no evidence. There
Well,
was
what
one
did they,
on
what remind the viewer, Pat, what did the BBC base its claim on?
one they're saying they had verified with various other people, but the thing is, it was one unidentified source they're saying said that Gerry Adams had given the orders to take out Dennis Donaldson. The person was never produced in court. There was no evidence to back it up. And apparently the Gardaí were not looking anywhere near Gerry Adams at all. So, and by the sound of it, I'm not 100% certain of this, but from what I can gather is BBC didn't check with the Gardaí or the relevant Gardaí about what the investigation was. So the thing is, here's a very simple thing to say: you're Gerry Adams and you had absolute zero to do with Dennis Donaldson's death. Wouldn't you have taken action as well? You're saying this is just a smear, and they think because I am a former Sinn Féin leader and associated with the IRA, etc., they can say this, and I'm going to do nothing about it.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty bold move on Gerry Adams's part, but it was long overdue. I would say for
Mm.
2 decades, 3 decades at least, uh,
Mm.
commentators said whatever the hell they liked. Just what they
Yeah,
wanted. If they wanted to say anything about the Sinn Féin, either an MLA or an MP or anything else, they simply said it. And yeah, I remember Gerry Adams at one time. Now this is about 25 years ago. Uh, some guy saying something and saying, and Gerry denying it, and the guy saying, "Well, sue me then." Um, and then he said, Derry said, "Well, we don't normally sue people, but maybe I'll start with you." But he
yeah.
didn't follow through on that. So they were free
Mm.
to do it, as you say, because the reputation went before them. They were seen as being in the public eye, gunmen and cruel
Yeah.
sort of
And,
psychopaths.
and there was all sorts of allegations made against totally innocent people because they were in Sinn Féin, and they knew the public opinion if they went to court didn't matter what they said they would get away with. Like there is a lesson, Jude, for the Stephen Collinses and the Michael McDowells and the Owen Harrises and even maybe the BBC. Right. See, the next time you're going to make an allegation, you better be able to prove it. I remember somebody saying it has a chilling effect on free speech.
Yes,
Jude, if I say something about you, I know something libelous. I should be able to prove it. If you say something about me, you should be able to prove it. Why not? Should surely the very same should apply to Gerry Adams. No, by the way, it wasn't accusing him of sort of some sort of political move. It was suggesting that he had organized a murder. He's quite entitled to go to court and say, "I did not."
I think that's one of the greatest ironies, what you've just pinpointed, Pat, about the whole thing, is that they're saying, that he gambled and all sorts of reasons why he won. There was a jury. The jury is the basis of, in my opinion, the basis of any legal system. But I
Yeah,
gather, incidentally, that the South is thinking of abolishing the jury for those kind of cases. It was just happen to still be that way. In the North, they
yeah,
don't have a jury for that kind of thing,
yeah,
which I'm not sure why. I gather for a start that it makes these things shorter. Gerry Adams's
yeah.
case went on in court for about 4 weeks. I suppose it might make it shorter, but surely you'd be looking for justice rather than, or what was the fairest
Well,
way of doing
Shim,
things,
Shim,
not the quickest way.
the secretary of the Irish National Union of Journalists, Seamus Dooley, said yesterday that he would prefer the northern system. He says because he said in a libel case like this, that the judge, I think there might be three judges. I'm not 100% certain that, Jude, but anyway, just the judge or the judges, when they were making their decision, would have to give a reasoned legal argument for reaching their verdict, which would then be open for appeal or scrutiny or whatever word you want to use. That no, that whatever they've done. He says when it's a jury, no one knows what the legal basis in which was they liked Adams and didn't like the way he was treating all the rest of it. Whatever it was, Jude, what he's saying is basically in the North, you get something to work on as a journalist. Why the decision was reached when it's a jury, you don't.
Well, I take his point. I take his point, but while it might be nice to have the reasons why the judges came to that conclusion, why then have we ever bothered with juries?
Yeah,
If you're saying these juries just sort of think about it and decide they're going to vote one way or another, and that the people wouldn't know why they'd done that. I just don't buy that at all. I believe
yeah,
in justice being decided by a jury of your peers. I mean,
absolutely.
judges can be wrong too. And I'd rather have 12 people in there discussing the thing, and 12 ordinary people rather than
Yeah,
three highly trained and highly paid legal minds. Besides which
yeah,
fact, even they give the reasons, it'll be harder to come back on them if you're doing appeal, because the appeal would mean that whoever, supposedly in the appeal, they reversed the decision, it would essentially be a slap in the teeth to three of their colleagues, which
yeah.
I think they'd be reluctant to do, surely. Um,
Remember Lord Denning, Jude? He said about some IRA cases, it would be an appalling vista. He
Ah,
also said it would be better for an innocent man to hang than to bring the system into disrepute.
ah.
He what else? Remember the Lord Judges, Justice Gibson. They remember he and his wife were brought up the IRA. Remember he made some comments about after sentencing they can be judged by the God in heaven. In other words, he was
The final
like
court of
his own
appeal. They've gone to the final court of appeal or final court of
yeah,
justice.
sorry, I couldn't remember it, but you know, he was his own bias came on. And there was a famous case some years ago. I can't remember the details, where there's some people, anti-hunting people in England,
Yeah.
and the judge sent them to jail. It was revealed afterwards the judge was a member of the bloody hunt. So like judges, as you said yourself, what do you call it? Can have a track record of bias as well. So
Yeah.
12 good men and true, and that
Or
includes women,
women.
are probably the fairest system of all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And that was one of the things that Sinn Féin and IRA people used to give out about, that they were in diplock courts all through the
Yeah,
Troubles, that they never got
yeah,
a jury, and the claim was that it had been too dangerous. It might have been dangerous, I'm not sure, but I for sure know that you're less likely to get justice if you're faced with a judge or even three judges than you would be if you had a
yeah,
jury of your peers. There was some there
yeah,
was some quite interesting objections to the whole thing besides the fact that there was a jury that decided it. One of them was it seemed to be hinting that well, as I said, that the jury was too young. They're in their
yeah,
20s and their 30s, and they therefore hadn't experienced the Troubles. So how could they judge it? I mean,
yeah.
words fail me on that one.
All
Another
right, but
objection.
there's a point I want to go back. If you, I listened to the reports nearly every day on RT
Yeah,
of the trial, and every time the thing about Adams was a lot of the prosecution will say the people who were having a go, the people for the BBC,
yeah.
they didn't stick. I think they brought everything but the kitchen sink in to have a sort of smear Adams. And I think he actually said during the thing, "What has this got to do with Spotlight?" And
Hmm.
the thought occurred to me. They brought in all the thing about he's been in the IRA, about all the rest of it, and about and they brought in Michael McDowell, and they brought in Anne Travers. Like, but that got to do with Dennis Donaldson. Like in other words, we're trying to create this picture, whatever. Obviously, it didn't work because the jury didn't believe it either. But I was wondering, what had that got to do with Dennis Donaldson murder? Either A, he sanctioned it, or B, he didn't.
Well, I agree with you entirely, Pat, but I think I know what they were trying to do. They're trying to provide a
I think
background.
I know what they were trying to do as well. Yeah,
Yeah, trying to provide a background which would say, well, see what this guy did back then? Well, look at him. Sure, of course he would, agree to or give the pass that Dennis Donaldson should be killed. It really was pretty awful. I must say, I'd say it riled as well when he said that he took the case to put manners on the British Broadcasting Corporation.
BBC,
I thought he made a point, which I have made time and time again, that the BBC is presented and it reported the troubles over the whole period that the troubles were going on. And it was always declared as being, well, neutral and fair and so on. My
yeah,
Aunt Fanny, if you look at the
yeah,
way that the BBC reported the troubles, anybody coming in from outside would say there's a bunch of crazies called the IRA, and there's maybe a few crazies, but they only react to it among the loyalists. So, I mean, we'll really have to catch these people or kill them or put them in jail or something. We can't have
yeah,
this. That essentially was the picture that was presented over the years. So it was a long
yeah,
time coming. As you say, the BBC was able to say whatever, and all the media as well, say whatever the hell they liked. And after this, they're now talking about, they're saying that then something bad has happened. They're saying that a chill factor may operate. In other words,
yeah,
that people will be afraid to write any attack or case against Sinn Féin. Well, I think you said it. If you're going to make a charge about people, you surely expected to come up with some evidence of it. And the fact of the
yeah,
matter is that in that case with the BBC, they had no evidence. They all they had was a bunch of five shady figures who said, "Yeah, he did it, he did it, he did it, he did it," and it didn't work. And I'm very pleased that it didn't. And
yeah.
one
See,
of the
Jude,
other things that
go
sorry,
ahead.
Pat, you go ahead.
No. The thing about it, Jude, is you know you'd think if you're going to accuse somebody of that, that you'd have hard evidence, that you would have somebody be able to
Yeah,
bring into court. This is Johnny here and whatever, or even for him to the court, look, because of its situation, here's our witness. He said, we're not going to reveal his identity, but you can go behind a screen or some sort of deal.
yeah,
But Jude, all they seem to have was this anonymous source that they didn't seem to. They said they checked that they were verified with five other sources and so on and so on. Now, Adams is saying totally, complete, and utter bullshit that I had nothing to do with. Bang, bang, bang. And Jude, he obviously he took it very seriously. The fact, Jude, it was high risk. If he had lost that case, I presume, like a lot of other people, he would be in deep financial trouble because they
oh
can take
yeah,
his
for
house, they
sure.
can take everything.
For sure. And it would damage the credibility of Sinn Féin in general, especially in the
Ah,
South, which is where they're trying to build
yeah,
their sort of base and maybe even get into government or lead the government. I thought some of the objections, not objections, but the little hints in the account of his win were a laugh. Like there was people writing about it, and they were hinting that the fact that Paul Tweed, who's I gather is a
mm.
famous is he a
Labor
barrister?
lawyer.
Barrister, I guess. Uh,
No, he's solicitor.
or just a
He's the
solicitor,
most
yeah, that he's a
famous,
famous
probably
man and
labor
he's
lawyer in
taken
Europe. Yeah,
taken a lot of cases, famous people. They seem to be suggesting that Gerry Adams wasn't playing fair by taking on this guy on his side, which I thought
yeah.
was a good laugh. Uh, did you catch Malaga Doherty's response to it?
No, I didn't actually.
Well, what he effectively said, as I picked it up, was that no doubt the decision would satisfy Gerry Adams's large ego.
Uh, I'm sure Jerry's worried about Maliki. Jerry Moriarty, the former Irish Times Northern editor, had an article which wasn't too complimentary towards Gerry Adams, but it goes to prove, it doesn't have that much of a chill factor. Like Jerry Moriarty wasn't exactly out batting for Gerry Adams, but like this thing, it's a chill factor. I don't quite buy. Like there's still going to be massive criticism of Adams. And dude, let's be honest. He keeps saying he wasn't on the IRA. I think most people say, "Come on, Jerry." But anyway, here you go.
Well, I'm gonna be no, not literally, but I'm going to be for a moment the devil's advocate. Now, everybody, and some of the journalists in the South have written this recently, and they said they've never met anybody from the North in any sphere of either in republicanism or outside republicanism who thought that anything but that Gerry Adams was a high-ranking figure in the IRA. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Has any of them produced evidence to support that assumption?
No, no.
I suspect, now I could be wrong, I don't know how people became members of the IRA. Was there a swear? I gather it was sort of a swearing in
It's a
thing.
swear. Isn't there a green book and there's they're swearing in?
Aye, and they're told what the score is and so on. I mean, it is surely it is possible. Now, I'm not saying it is the case, but surely it is possible that Gerry Adams deliberately didn't become a member of the IRA. He certainly made, as he always said, he made no bones about his support for the IRA and the
Yeah,
justice of what they were doing. But he said he was never in there. And I actually think that is a possibility. If you stop to think about it, all the people who say, oh, of course he was in there, Gerry, give us a break. What evidence is there? Has anybody produced a shred of evidence? The truth is, we know nothing about how people joined the IRA. We just assumed that people like Gerry Adams was in it. There are
right.
other,
But you're right to cut across you. Remember the time they were taking the Chinny walk? They
yeah,
were supposed to be our leaders,
and Gerry Adams
the young Martin
was
McGuinness
there,
and Gerry Adams were supposed to be
and
right.
Martin McGuinness.
That's the thing. But then here you've got a point. That's the negative side. The plus side is
Oh, yeah,
for
I don't
years
think,
I remember
okay, say your positive side, and then we'll come back to mine.
the plus side then was for years I was sort of told, or well, it's my own observation as well. You know the sort of De Valera, Michael Collins, Gerry was the politician and Martin was the warrior king,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the role they played. That
Mm-hmm.
Gerry was Sinn Féin, Martin was the IRA
Mm-hmm.
for many years, and you know maybe Gerry always was Sinn Féin. I don't know, but put it like this, I have yet to meet anybody who says, look, Gerry Adams wasn't on the IRA.
Well, there was a time when everybody in Ireland thought that every priest was a saint.
Yeah,
And they discovered different after a period of time. I'm saying that because everybody says it doesn't mean it's right.
no,
I'd like that people to, I think it's fair enough. I know it sounds outrageous because everybody has said it so often, but surely to God,
yeah,
somebody should come up with a wee bit of evidence, even a shred of evidence. Is there any reason why Gerry Adams wouldn't have decided just strategically, I'll not become a member of the IRA, but I'll give the IRA my support all the way?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and in fact, that has proved to be successful. And if you say he was brought over for the Chinny Walk talks, yeah, but that still doesn't prove that he was in the IRA. It proves, if you like, that he was capable of negotiating as somebody who was fully on the side of the IRA. Incidentally, one little
yeah,
point. This is the second case that Gerry Adams has won. The other one was, you remember, that he was imprisoned, interned
yeah.
illegally, uh,
3
and
days
therefore he
before an
couldn't be
election.
charged with escape. I
Yeah,
was thinking there must be quite a few people in the same boat among
yeah,
Sinn Féin and the Republicans who, well, they certainly were interned without any, proof or evidence, thousands of them. And, might they not be entitled to claim and compensation for the years that they spent or the time that they spent in Long Cash or wherever?
yeah. No, that day, that ship has sailed.
Anyway, it's really quite amusing. But I thought I was amazed that they brought in Jane Donaldson, Dennis Donaldson's daughter, into the case. I was amazed that they brought in Austin Stack. Like that just seems to me, you'd feel great sympathy for both people. They lost people they loved, but as you said, they had nothing to do with this particular case, which was Gerry
Yeah,
Adams. Did he sanction the death of Dennis Donaldson? And they couldn't prove it.
yeah, and you got to ask, and I with great respect, because as you said, people have lost and Stack, who lived somewhere down about Limerick or Cork or Kerry somewhere. Would
Yeah.
he know about what was happening in Belfast?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, you see, this is the thing. There are people who, for good reasons or maybe bad reasons, and sometimes justified reasons, hate Gerry Adams and everything connected with republicanism and the IRA. So, of course, if they get a chance, they'll carry their hatred of him into circumstances that might damage him. Okay, enough of the damage. Let's talk about a slightly more domestic version of violence. Did you see that little clip of Emmanuel Macron? Emmanuel
Well,
means, by the way,
yes,
God with us. I suppose you knew that, did you?
because does not mean son of God, no.
Well, as I understood it, I remember that Pierre Trudeau appeared on TV on Christmas Day when I was in Canada. on two occasions, and on both occasions he had a child. His wife had a child on Christmas Day. But anyway, I remember
Yeah.
him saying, "Oh, we're calling this one Emmanuel, which means God with us." But
Good for
maybe
you.
some God bless you or something. But anyway, what did you think of Emmanuel getting that shove in the face from what turned out to be his wife when he was getting off the
Yeah.
plane?
I saw it on social media. Dude, they've tried to play it every which way now. There was a domestic this, and there was a bit of fun, and there was a bit of horseplay, and all the rest. Dude, she slapped him in the face or pushed him in the face. Now, dude, there's a whole big issue here. Dude. Is it Emmanuel Macron? Is he the victim of domestic violence? You know, and he might be one of the most powerful men in the world, but I should have to laugh. He was 15, she was 39. She was a drama teacher. He was one of her students. There's a what is it, a 24-year gap in age between them. He
Yeah,
is now 47, she is 72 or something like that.
71.
I'm not very good at maths and so on. And did you sort of go, you know, what's going on there? Now, here's the thing, and let me run this. I was a teacher in, say, any school, and I was 39, and I had an affair or got involved with a 15-year-old girl. Big golf, absolutely apeshit. What's going on there? And I'd probably lose my job. Is there this sort of tolerance because it's a woman and it's all the way around? You were a former lecturer, you tell me.
Oh yeah, I think Pat, you wouldn't just lose your job; you'd find yourself in prison probably. Um,
Uh,
the several journalists, to their credit, have said this. Switch the thing around. Supposing it was his wife getting off the plane, and you saw his fists coming out and pushing her in the face.
if he had punched her or pushed her,
I mean, they'd be held to pay for that. They really would be held to pay for that. But they're both
yeah,
instances of domestic violence. Uh,
yeah,
so are we saying that we will judge when it's done by a woman to a man differently from what we would judge it from a man to a woman? I think most people were amused by that. But if it had been the other way around, they would have been horrified. Was that not true? And it
yeah,
might be true of me too. That might have
absolutely.
been my reaction.
Dude, I remember remember women who said they were abused and they
Hmm,
had killed their husbands and
hmm.
all the rest of it. I remember one guy coming on saying this is becoming way too easy. That now a defence, even where there's very little evidence of domestic abuse, where there's a woman has killed her husband, all they have to say was what he that I've been for many years a victim of coercive control and domestic abuse and all the rest. Now, by the way, Jude, that's not to decry. See where there is domestic abuse and coercive control, you can understand why somebody loses it. But having said that, what I remember a solicitor was on a debating program. He said it's just becoming a wee bit too easy that all women know that society's going to say, "Oh, she was the victim of domestic abuse. Oh, that means she should get off very lightly." Now, switch it around. And as you rightly pointed out, had that been Macron pushing his wife in the face the same way, it would have, as you rightly pointed out, it would have been all over the place, all over the show, and he would have been accused of being a thug, and he would be no longer president of France.
And to be fair, I would have thought very poorly of him if he'd done that. Is it maybe the reason that it's different in the woman's case is that the woman is
Yeah,
normally physically weaker than the man? Is that it?
yeah, and all that sort of. But there shouldn't be double standards either.
Yeah, that's true. I remember one time. Do you remember what would he call that glamorous woman who was the daughter, was she, of cabinet minister, the great chef?
Nigella Lawson, Nigella
Nigella
Lawson.
Lawson. Now, wasn't there an incident where she
Yeah,
was at an outdoor
Charles.
cafe
Remember
with her husband? What happened there?
Yeah,
What happened?
He was one of, remember the Saatchi Brothers advertising
Yeah.
agency.
Do
I
you
think
remember what
his name was
happened?
Charles. The other fellow was called Morris. They were out for a meal one night,
Yeah,
and apparently he reached for her and got her up, pushed her up with his hand against her throat, and somebody I must have had a mobile phone and took a photograph of it.
yeah.
And apparently, I think it might have been the Daily Mirror or the Sunday Mirror when they were a really big paper. They took a photograph, and the editor was approached, and he said he thought about it for a long time whether they should use or should not. But he says it became, in his mind, it was a matter of public interest because he said if this guy was willing to do that in a public restaurant, what was he doing in private?
Hmm.
Anyway, Charles Saatchi tried to spin it. There was no big deal. It was just a wee falling out. Uh, obviously Nigella didn't think the same. She left the home and took her children with her. So
Mm,
it was only a wee spat in the office
mm,
or
mm.
in the restaurant. So Jude, one laugh for one and one laugh for another. Eh?
Yeah, I remember that case very vividly because I made the mistake, a diplomatic mistake. I said, yeah, that was pretty rough, all right. It is possible, of course, I said. This was in a tweet, I think. It is possible that she goaded him into it. I mean, what I meant by that was that she said things to really, set his fuse, light his fuse,
Yeah.
and watch him as he sizzled. Uh, I mean, that was one of the major
You wouldn't get away
Twitter
with that.
storms that I
You would. You
endured.
definitely wouldn't get away with that.
You see, once again, that's the funny thing. Nobody is jumping up and down and saying that Emmanuel Macron's wife was doing something rather bad. Anyway, interesting, isn't it? Let's move
Yep.
very, very briefly because we're going
Hey,
to
Jude,
run out of
I
time.
don't know if long we've left, but hey, well, there's one I want. I saw it on social media, and you brought it up. This thing about Ireland is now the number one most educated
Wow.
country in the
Yeah.
world. That is, I thought that was fantastic. But the reason I mentioned it, Jude, there's a guy on social media the last day. In fact, there's a couple. One guy came on and says, "You Irish are thick," and I was able to come back and say, "Here you are, son. This is the most educated." And there went another. There's some other guy tried to say, "Oh, that if you went to Italy, that 2 years at an industrial school or some sort of technical school was a better education than you're getting in Ireland." And I made the point, and I'm very proud of the fact. I said, "Look, here's here's a few points. Number one, Ireland, the only place in the world that exports more computer software is Silicon Valley. Than Ireland's the second. We have
Hmm.
more people now with degrees than any place else. And if you think you can come over to Ireland and get yourself that sort of degree, come on ahead. But does anyone seriously think that the high end jobs that are needed for high tech companies that you can get into them by being a moron? The standard of education in Ireland is first class. So
Hmm.
the days of the thick Irish, that stereotype, I think that survey the last day was absolutely has finally blown that out of the water.
And it was put together by David McWilliams, who always does a very thorough job when he's doing something. He gets in lot of facts to his argument, which I think is admirable. I say that as somebody who's not good at getting facts into his arguments.
No,
But
neither am I.
the other thing is, I was wondering, like he said that, well, one of the points that you didn't mention was he stressed that poor students uh, in Ireland were much more likely to complete their degrees than poor students who were embarked on degrees in other countries. Thought that was quite
Hmm.
telling, because when you're
Yeah,
poor, you can say, here's a little bit of rubbish. I'm going to get a job and I'm going to get a bit of money in my pocket. He says that the poor students in Ireland are able to stand the strain and hang in there, and that once they get the degree, opens the door for them. I think there's probably true. The other thing is, I'm a wee bit worried. I always worry about this. He said that a degree or education is the best way out of poverty, and that's probably true. But there's a danger, I
uh,
think, in seeing education as being the whole point of education is to lift people out of poverty. I am sufficiently idealistic to believe that the degree or education should be about more than just are you going to make more money? Are you going to have a richer lifestyle? I'd like to think it would present us with a population with thoughtful, understanding, interesting ideas, and just generally more rounded human beings. Would you think that would be a reasonable
you
aspiration?
would like you think so, but look at some of the people surrounding Trump. Just to use, and we're not going to discuss it. Marco Rubio and all these guys are qualified lawyers.
Uh,
Vance go to Yale? I think he went to
he did,
Yale
he did,
and
he
all of
did.
that. And they're the most right wing, obnoxious gobshites. They should be out, milking horses or some bloody thing. They're that stupid, and they have no quality, no culture, no what you'd say civilized behavior. So,
I would Pat,
but
I
you're
would
100%
Pat.
right.
But
Uh,
at the same time, like you know yourself that most educated people are reasonably
Aye, that's true.
civilized, are they?
Right, Judy, he says 54% of the people, adults in Ireland, have
Yeah.
got what do you call it, degrees. Jude,
Yes.
by the way, just let me tell you something. My mother and father left school at 14.
Uh,
No, I'm not using this. I have a master's degree. My son, my eldest son has a master's degree. Now, the second guy, Asperger's son, so we'll just leave him out of that. But my youngest son has a master's degree. So there's three master's degree in one house. Like, dude, not one of my parents' siblings went to university. None of my background went to university. So free education that came in
mm.
1967, and I don't think we would have got it, but for free education. So free education has lifted the boats of Irish lives quite a lot.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And education, definitely, because again, like yourself, my father, I think he left school when he was 12. My father was hired as a hired boy at,
Yeah,
I suppose, the age of 12 at Strabane Hiring Fair. You
yeah,
come
yeah,
across that idea? The Strabane Hiring Fair, and he was hired out to look after sheep or something on a bloody mountain. And he says he used to tell us
yeah.
that he would sit on the mountain and look, and he could see his house, his home from where he was,
Aye,
and he used to sit and
yeah,
cry. Um,
aye,
and my mother left school about 13, 14, and she frequently would say, I don't know where you got the brains, but it wasn't from me anyway. But
aye, yeah, yeah,
same time, I think we should keep in mind that education does other things than get us a
yeah,
ticket to a life that's reasonably comfortable. Although that's true.
aye.
Last point, Pat, it's very short now because we've got virtually no time. 1.5 minutes. Noel Doran has an article in, I think it's Irish News, and he talks about a claim that has been made about an informer at the time of the Enniskillen bomb working in the Garda. Did you see that by any
Yeah.
chance?
No, 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 no.
Would you have ever doubted anything about the Enniskillen bomb? Because that's one of the things they hold up against the IRA as being a particular atrocity.
Right, well, Jude, there's a whole lot of you see the Oma bombing too. There's something Jude
Yeah,
doesn't add up about the whole Oma bombing. They
yeah.
knew about it beforehand, so I don't know.
Well, I tend to think that it paints the IRA as doing something spectacularly stupid. Now, I
Yeah,
grant you they could do stupid things and did, I'm sure, but they weren't that stupid. And
no,
to think that they would rather win their case by bringing a bomb into the middle of Oman, blowing 29 people up,
I
I don't think so. I don't think so.
don't think so.
And same thing with Enniskillen. Did they think that blowing up people at a memorial on Remembrance
That was
Day,
going to
that
win
that
the
would be
public
something
opinion.
good
Yeah,
for them? I don't think so.
I
So
don't think so.
I suspend my judgment. Okay, Pat, thanks very much. I
Okay,
now will
Jude.
go and try to find a way to get this bloody thing to work so that everybody can see every pore of our lovely faces. Okay?
I
You happy with
I'll
that,
leave you with
Pat?
that. Uh, Good luck and God
Okay.
bless.
Thanks, Pat.